there were 53 presidential terms and 43 presidents in total. 3 misses only by this computer program. This makes the accuracy rate of this entire study 94%. But listen to this. Spaceman AM 640, Toronto Radio. The accuracy of assassination attempts, and successful and unsuccessful, still is at 100%. Because without fail, assassinations of U.S. presidents always corresponded to the danger rating by the computer. When I come back on A View from Space, we're going to go through each president and their rating. It's next on AM 640, Toronto Radio.
The opinions expressed on this show do not necessarily reflect those of AM 640 Toronto Radio. History buffs, monarchists masticate, truth seekers cheer. He's the spaceman with a view from space. AM 640 Toronto Radio.
On the guy that calls space, this is AM 640 Toronto Radio. Talking about Obama. Barack Hussein Obama, who is of royal blood, believe it or not. I'll get to that tonight in the hour remaining. But listen to this. The accuracy of assassination attempts and unsuccessful also, remains at 100% with Vedic Astrology so far. So here's what's happened to each president. I should explain this first. It's all to do with the planets and the stars. The planets each have, like for instance, Mars is big trouble. Mars is the planet of war. Now, when they're in 90-degree angles with, say, the Sun, or in 90-degree angles with, say, Sirius, you'd get a danger rating. Now, here's what's happened to each president, and you also have to know the exact time of that president's inauguration. Of course, the year. Actually, the birth of his presidency, which would be at the swearing-in ceremony. Well, going all the way back to George Washington, that you can't really nail down the exact time of day, but within a few hours isn't going to make much difference to the celestial bodies moving in the sky, if you understand what I mean. So that's why they could have kind of blown it on FDR on his 4th term, when he should have actually been killed in office or die in office on his 3rd term, because he was only 2 months into it. But anyway, let's just start with George Washington, his 1st term. George helped establish policies for choosing a cabinet and for the administrative tasks of government. George Washington was the only unanimously voted in president, because he was never voted in by the people. He was voted in just by the government officials. So it was deemed a success by the computer. George Washington's 2nd term, George continued to assist that fledgling government to get started and to keep the peace with the Indians and abroad. Another success by the computer. By the way, George Washington was the leader of Freemasonry and mapped out the city of Washington and all of its occult markings and everything. Anyway, moving on to John Adams. Sought political harmony and avoided war with France. Success. Thomas Jefferson, term 1. He was subjected to a lot of attacks in the press due to powerful opposition, but no attack was successful or created national scandals. Made the Louisiana Purchase that gave America land to the Mississippi River. I mean, they just ripped off the Indians, something wicked. He was a success. Thomas Jefferson, second term. His second term was a success also, though tarnished by the betrayal of Vice President Aaron Burr. The Burr conspiracy was foiled before it endangered Jefferson. It was deemed a success by the computer and Vedic astrology. James Madison's first term, there was extremely intense, near treasonous opposition to this administration by New Englanders, where there was talk of secession, breaking away from the Union. The computer gave Madison a danger connotation. James Madison's second term, near fatal illness in June of 1813. He suffered from a near fatal illness that did not kill him, but the computer gave him a danger connotation. James Monroe, first term, adopted conciliatory attitudes towards New England, created controversy over slavery policies in Missouri. He was deemed a success by Vedic astrology. The stars were aligned for him. Monroe's second term, Missouri slavery debates continued. Indian reforms were blocked. He was a success. John Quincy Adams, a nationalist president whose policies favored creating more infrastructure, better roads. He was a success by the Vedic astrology. Andrew Jackson's first term. Andrew Jackson waged war on the Bank of the United States and became involved in controversy between state rights versus federal government. He was a success. Andrew Jackson's second term. The war on the Bank of the United States resulted in economic reforms. Foreign policy was successful. And Vedic astrology gave him a success also. Martin Van Buren, occupied with a severe financial crisis in his tenure, precipitated in part by Jackson's reforms with that war on the banks of the United States. As you see, the royals grabbed a hold of the purse strings of this new union. Behind the scenes, of course. Martin Van Buren was deemed a success by Vedic astrology. And William Henry Harrison died in office. Harrison died of pneumonia only a few short weeks after his inauguration speech. What did he get from the computer? A danger connotation, of course. The computer was right on. Vedic astrology was right on. James Polk obtained the Oregon Territory from the British and Texas and California from Mexico. Was so exhausted by his term in office, he died 3 months after his term. You guessed it, the computer gave him a danger connotation also. Zachary Taylor died in office during a particularly acute national crisis regarding slavery and the new Western Territories. Another danger connotation from Vedic astrology. And another dead president in office. Franklin Pierce. His policy to allow Kansas and Missouri to decide slavery issues for themselves created controversy. A success by Vedic astrology. James Buchanan, a pro-union president, a Democrat with an anti-slavery policy, conflict over slavery versus anti-slavery in Kansas, and its admission to the Union created tensions leading to the Civil War. And when the Republicans nominated Abraham Lincoln, it was a foregone conclusion that he'd be elected. He would not be, that Abraham would be elected, and that this James Buchanan would be thrown out of office. And that's exactly what happened. President Buchanan, dismayed, hesitant, denied the legal right of states to secede, but held that the federal government, legally could not prevent them from leaving. He hoped for compromise. He died 7 years later, leaving his successor to resolve the frightful issue facing the nation, secession, North against the South. Naturally, Buchanan got a danger reading from the computer. The next president that inherited that mess, North versus the South, Abe Lincoln. Term 1. President Lincoln assumed the presidency near bankrupt Treasury. South had already seceded from the Union. He accomplished what many thought impossible under the circumstances. He got money to fight the Civil War and kept what was left of the Union together. He was given a